Pokemon X and Y. When Pokemon X and Y dropped in 2013, it felt like the series had finally made the leap fans had been waiting for. For the first time, the mainline Pokemon games went fully 3D, and suddenly the world of Kalos looked alive in a way no handheld entry had before. Cities had depth, trainers had personality, and battles felt like dynamic showdowns rather than flat sprite clashes. But it wasn't just the visuals that made X and Y a turning point. Game Freak introduced Mega Evolutions, a flashy new mechanic that temporarily transformed fan-favorite Pokemon into powered-up forms with boosted stats and fresh designs. It added unpredictability to battles and gave old Pokemon like Charizard and Gengar new life in competitive play. On top of that, X and Y were the first mainline games to feature true worldwide online play, meaning trades and battles finally extended beyond link cables and local connections. The story itself leaned heavily on themes of beauty and bonds, with the France-inspired Kalos region bursting with flair. While some critics argued the game felt a bit too easy, nobody could deny that X and Y ushered Pokemon into a new era of connectivity and spectacle. Fire Emblem Awakening. When Fire Emblem Awakening hit the 3DS in 2012, it wasn't just another entry in Nintendo's long-running tactical RPG series, it was a lifeline. The franchise was on the verge of cancellation due to weak sales in the West, and Nintendo openly admitted that Awakening would be its last shot. Instead, it turned into a phenomenon. Awakening blended deep, strategic combat with surprisingly emotional storytelling. Players commanded squads across grid-based battlefields, where every move carried weight. The famous permadeath system meant losing a unit was permanent, forcing tough choices and intense planning. But what really hooked people was the cast. Characters weren't just faceless soldiers, they had relationships, personalities, and even the potential to marry and have children. Those children could then join your army, inheriting skills from their parents. It gave the battles a personal edge, as fans fought to protect not just their units, but their favorites. The story of Robin, Lucina, and others fighting to prevent a ruined future struck a chord worldwide. Critical acclaim and word-of-mouth buzz turned Awakening into a million-seller, completely reversing the franchise's fortunes. Instead of dying, Fire Emblem became one of Nintendo's most important series, all thanks to this one game. Super Mario 3D Land. Super Mario 3D Land wasn't just another Mario game, it was Nintendo's proof that the 3DS could deliver platforming experiences you couldn't get anywhere else. Released in 2011, it blended the tight, side-scrolling precision of classic 2D Mario with the freedom of 3D exploration. Levels were designed almost like dioramas, compact but packed with clever ideas that made full use of the handheld stereoscopic 3D. The 3D effect wasn't a gimmick here, it was the gameplay. Depth perception mattered when timing jumps, hitting platforms, or dodging enemies. And while the stages were short and easy at first, the difficulty ramped up after the credits rolled, throwing in devious bonus levels that reminded fans Mario could still challenge even veteran players. Super Mario 3D Land also marked the return of the Tanuki suit, a fan-favorite power-up from Super Mario Bros. 3, giving Mario a tailspin attack and extra air control. It was a nostalgic callback that fit perfectly into the game's design philosophy, familiar but fresh. Selling over 12 million copies, it became one of the console's best sellers and set the stage for the critically acclaimed Super Mario 3D World on the Wii U. For many, it proved Mario could thrive on a handheld just as much as a home console. Mario Kart 7. Mario Kart 7 was the kind of game that made the 3DS feel unstoppable. Released in 2011, it brought Nintendo's most chaotic racer to handheld in a way that felt bigger, faster, and more inventive than ever. At its core, it was the classic Mario Kart formula: race, drift, launch shells, and pray for mercy against the infamous blue shell. But what set this entry apart were the new mechanics that would become staples of the series. For the first time, players could glide through the air with hang gliders or drive underwater, transforming tracks into multi-layered obstacle courses. Kart customization also debuted here, letting players tweak tires, frames, and gliders to fine-tune their racing style. Those additions made Mario Kart 7 feel both familiar and refreshingly new, especially on the go. The track list was equally impressive, with standouts like Music Park, Woohoo Loop, and fan-favorite retro tracks like Luigi's Mansion. Online multiplayer pushed the competition worldwide, while Street Pass integration let racers exchange ghost data with people they passed in real life. With nearly 19 million copies sold, Mario Kart 7 isn't just the best-selling 3DS game, it cemented the handheld as a multiplayer powerhouse. For many fans, it remains one of the purest, most balanced Mario Kart experiences ever released. Animal Crossing New Leaf. Animal Crossing New Leaf didn't just continue the cozy life sim formula, it reinvented it. Released in 2012, it handed players something they'd never had before: real power over their town. Instead of arriving as just another villager, you became the mayor, with the freedom to shape the community through public works projects and ordinances. Suddenly, Animal Crossing wasn't just about decorating your house, it was about building a village that reflected your personality. The charm of New Leaf came from its details. Villagers had more personality, furniture sets grew more elaborate, and multiplayer opened the door for friends to visit each other's towns seamlessly. The introduction of Isabelle, your ever-helpful assistant, became one of the franchise's most beloved additions, quickly turning her into a Nintendo mascot in her own right. What made New Leaf stick was its pacing. The game unfolded in real time, with shops expanding, holidays rolling in, and seasons changing. For many players, it became a ritual. Check in daily, water the flowers, talk to your neighbors, and slowly watch your town evolve. With over 12 million copies sold, New Leaf wasn't just a hit, it turned Animal Crossing into a global phenomenon, paving the way for New Horizons years later. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time 3D. Few remakes in gaming history have hit as hard as Ocarina of Time 3D. Released in 2011, this wasn't just a nostalgia trip, it was a full modernization of one of the most celebrated games of all time. The original N64 classic was revolutionary, but by 2011, its blocky models and muddy textures were showing their age. On the 3DS, everything came to life with sharper visuals, smoother animations, and a presentation that made Hyrule feel alive again. The handheld hardware allowed Nintendo and Grezzo to polish nearly every aspect. Menus were streamlined to the bottom screen, gyro aiming added precision to slingshots and bows, and the stereoscopic 3D effect gave dungeons and landscapes an extra sense of depth. Even veteran players who knew the game inside and out found the experience fresh. Ocarina of Time 3D also included the Master Quest, a remixed version of the game with tougher enemies and mirrored dungeons, giving fans a new reason to dive back in. For newcomers, it was the most accessible entry point into one of gaming's all-time greats. It went on to sell over 6 million copies, proving that Ocarina's magic hadn't faded. On the 3DS, it felt timeless all over again. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos daily. Kid Icarus Uprising. Kid Icarus Uprising was one of the boldest swings Nintendo ever took on the 3DS. Released in 2012, it marked the first new Kid Icarus game in over 2 decades, and instead of a simple revival, it became a full-blown reinvention. It fused on-rails shooting with third-person action in a way that felt unlike anything else on the system. Players took control of Pit, an angel serving the goddess Palutena, soaring through dazzling sky battles before dropping to the ground for fast-paced combat. The spectacle was jaw-dropping for handheld hardware, massive bosses, sweeping set pieces, and a soundtrack that rivaled Nintendo's biggest franchises. The game also introduced an inventive weapon fusion and difficulty system, rewarding risk-takers with bigger payoffs. But Uprising wasn't without controversy. Its unusual control scheme, requiring players to hold the system while aiming with the stylus, divided fans. To ease the strain, Nintendo even shipped the game with a plastic stand, a rare accessory just to make it easier to play. Despite that, the constant banter between characters and the sheer ambition of the game cemented it as a classic. The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask 3D. When Majora's Mask 3D landed on the 3DS in 2015, it gave new life to one of the most divisive yet beloved Zelda titles ever made. The original N64 release had always stood apart, darker, stranger, and built around a time loop system that forced players to relive the same 3 days over and over. On the 3DS, Nintendo and Grezzo refined that formula, making it more approachable without losing its eerie atmosphere. Visuals were overhauled with sharper models, richer colors, and expressive animations that amplified the game's surreal tone. The interface benefited from the touchscreen, streamlining item management and mask switching, a lifesaver in a game built on juggling abilities. Quality of life tweaks also adjusted boss fights and quest tracking, reducing some of the frustrations that made the original notoriously challenging. What still stands out though is the mood. Majora's Mask isn't about grand heroics, it's about dread, tragedy, and fleeting hope. Each mask tells a story, from healing the pain of lost loved ones to embodying their lingering regrets. On handheld, those emotional beats felt even more intimate. Selling over 3 million copies, the remake cemented Majora's Mask as more than just the weird Zelda. It became a handheld masterpiece in its own right. Bravely Default. By 2012, many fans thought the golden age of traditional JRPGs was long gone. Then Bravely Default arrived on the 3DS and proved the genre could still evolve while honoring its roots. Developed by Square Enix, it was a love letter to classic Final Fantasy, complete with a crystal-driven story, a job system, and turn-based battles, but with twists that made it feel daringly modern. The game's defining feature was its Brave and Default combat system. Players could choose to default and defend, banking turns for later, or Brave and unleash multiple actions in one round. It turned battles into a constant gamble. Play it safe or risk everything for a decisive strike. That single mechanic gave even random encounters a layer of strategy that kept players hooked. Its art direction stood out too. a watercolor world with beautifully detailed towns and dungeons that popped on the 3DS screen. The sweeping soundtrack and strong voice acting only deepened the immersion. Bravely Default didn't just become a cult hit, it reinvigorated Square Enix's approach to RPGs and spawned sequels, proving there was still a massive appetite for turn-based adventures. For many, it was the JRPG that defined the 3DS. Metroid: Samus Returns. By 2017, the 3DS was nearing the end of its life, but Metroid: Samus Returns gave the handheld one last defining masterpiece. Developed by Mercury Steam alongside Nintendo, it was a full reimagining of the 1991 Game Boy title Metroid 2: Return of Samus. What was once a cramped, monochrome adventure became a sprawling, visually stunning quest that finally did the story justice. Samus Returns introduced modern mechanics that transformed the feel of 2D Metroid. The new melee counter system let players stun enemies before blasting them, adding a rhythmic flow to combat. Free aim controls gave precise shooting in any direction, a huge leap from the restrictive aiming of past entries. Combined with the 3DS stereoscopic 3D, the game delivered layered environments that felt massive compared to the original's tiny tunnels. The game stayed faithful to its roots, hunting down 40 Metroids on the hostile planet SR-388, but layered in new boss fights, upgrades, and atmospheric details that fleshed out the lore. Fans and critics alike praised it as both a return to form and an evolution for the franchise. Selling over 500,000 copies, Samus Returns proved that even at the twilight of the 3DS, Nintendo could still deliver something extraordinary. What was your favorite 3DS game? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching.